Alright, guys, so this is going to be my review of Batman the Shadow, or Batman the Shadow 2, The Silent Seven. So this is, yes, the second Batman Shadow crossover that came out from Dynamite and DC a couple years ago. I've been meaning to find it, but it was rather hard to find. I had gotten, actually, the Murder Genesis as a Christmas present years ago, and I did a review of it several years ago. And this is the follow-up that was written by Steve Orlando. If you guys remember, the first one, Murder Genesis, that one was written by Steve Orlando and Scott Snyder. But this time, Steve Orlando takes the writing on his own and goes on his own way with artwork by Giovanni Timpano. Hope I'm saying that last name right. So, is this crossover any good? Pretty good. I still think the first one is a little better, but this one definitely is no slouch. Like, this is a crossover sequel that definitely I think, really carries its own. So the story is that the Shadow and Batman are brought together once again when it first seems like Professor Pig attacks New York with his Dolatrons. But then it's discovered that Professor Pig was getting his Dolatrons back from this group called the Silent Seven, another secret organization that's been organizing crime in the world all this time. It's one of those things that we've seen 100 times over. And in here, in this story, Batman and the Shadow already are aware of each other. We're dealing with the fallout. Like, this takes place, like, I think 6 months after the first one. And this time we have another character in here, and that character is Robin. Yeah, Damian is our second character in here. So the two of them are brought together to find out who are the Silent Seven. And who are the Silent Seven? Well, it turns out it's not so much seven, but more of two. And those two are Ra's al Ghul and Siwan Khan. Two really big villains that I'm pretty sure, I'm very quite sure Steve Orlando wanted to write. I'm very certain that he wanted to write Al Ghul and Siwan Khan. So, anyway, this story brings together Batman and the Shadow with Damian in the middle of it, or in half the story, because while Damian does play a role in the story, it feels like halfway through he kind of goes off on his own mission, and it really feels like more like he's kind of forgotten about in half the book. So it's a little funny that, they bring Damian in here, and it's like treated as like a big moment in a way. It's like treated as like a big moment between them, and then it's like, he's going to deal with more of Al Ghul and then come back for the rest of the story. I do like that, like, Batman in here, Bruce and Lamont are still at odds with each other, because Batman, even though, if you guys remember from the previous crossover, it's revealed in that continuity that the Shadow was really Ducard the whole time and was low-key training Bruce to take on the mantle of the Shadow and replace him. But that didn't happen, and Shambhala was destroyed by this villain called the Stag, leaving the Shadow alone and immortal. And it's even brought up even more because now his love, Margot Lane, has passed away of old age. And this we get to see a little of the Shadow, like and those kind of problems with immortality, because now all he has left is just killing people, and he's still dealing with losing Margot. And meanwhile, this is still a time period where Bruce and Damian are still like trying to figure each other out, and I'm like, I'm glad we've gone back to it of Bruce and Damian, being at odds again, thanks Batman versus Robin. Thanks, said no one ever. But I really am just, I do understand for this, like, the animosity, like, the tension between Bruce and Damian here, because this was still a time where Damian was still figuring out to be a Robin. So I was a lot more like, okay, he's still like trying to learn like what it means to be Robin and to be take on the legacy of the Batman. I get it, okay, but here it's like I'm a little more cool with it, but on the other end of that spectrum, I'm like, I wish we would just move past this by now. I also like that they also talk about like how, Siwan and Al Ghul have taken over the world. They won, and Lamont is just like, we can just go in there and take apart their little government they've put together. And Bruce is like, no, we can't do that. They've put it in a way that like it will collapse the whole world if we do this wrong. We need to find a way to replace, to fix it before we take it apart. You can't just go in there guns blazing. And he's like, nah. But yeah, this is a fun It's like a fun adventure spy story. It's actually very this comic feels very reminiscent of the Neil Adams days. Like this could easily be a Neil Adams comic. Neil Adams comic. And Steve Orlando really breaks in that whole espionage kind of spy thriller era of of Batman in the 70s. The artwork is very well done, and there's some very unique paneling in here from the whole group. So the artwork is pretty well done. I will say, though, that Bruce's face still feels a little weird at times. Like, Bruce and Damian's faces especially feel a little off at times. All in all, if you can find this book, I highly recommend getting it. If you enjoyed the first Batman Shadow crossover and wanted to check out the second one if you haven't already, I do highly recommend finding this. I found this at a little store in the mall, and I was just like looking around like, oh, this is alright, this is cool. And then I saw Batman the Shadow. I'm like, is this the second one? I'm like, oh, it is. So I just got it like a day ago, and I've already gone through it, yeah. But anyway, so there's my review for Batman the Shadow, the Silent Seven. But you guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of Batman the Shadow? Batman the Shadow 2. Did you guys like it, hate it? Comment below, let me know. Other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.